It's finally time. I have finally finished Realm of the Elderlings. The Fitz and the Fool trilogy is the final trilogy in Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings series so far. I think I read somewhere that she might be doing more books in this. I'm not sure, but this is definitely the ending of Fitz's story, of Fitz and the Fool's story. I mean, it's called The Fitz and the Fool after all. My reviews of the Tawny Man trilogy, I think, are my favorite videos that I've made, my favorite reviews that I've ever made. And, you know, the reason being is that, like I mentioned in those videos, the Tawny Man trilogy is one of those series that hit me at just the right time, right? Because I am in the stage of life that Fitz was in during the Tawny Man trilogy. And so for that reason, everything that Fitz goes through in that trilogy was super impactful and emotionally resonant for me in ways that I did not expect, and in ways that I really appreciated, and that really, I think, changed me as a person. And so it is because of that that I want you to understand when I say that I didn't like the Fitz and Fool as much as the Tawny Man trilogy, that's the reason why. And we're getting into full spoilers here, right? Because I don't do spoiler-free reviews. I want to talk about the actual things I don't like or like so that you can actually understand what I'm saying in my reviews. Anyway, moving on. Because I am not at the stage of life that Fitz is in this trilogy. And so for that reason, it didn't quite hit me as consistently emotionally as the Tawny Man trilogy did. That being said, that does not mean I think these books are bad. By no means. These books are amazing, one and all. And it doesn't mean that I was not emotionally moved at all. In fact, Assassin's Fate is the most emotional experience I've had reading a book. And that is because of the ending of Fitz's journey at the end of this book. The last 80 pages of this that's ending Fitz's story. I'm not using hyperbole for the sake of a review video when I say that for the last 100 pages of this book, it made me fully ugly cry. And I'm talking I couldn't breathe. I had to stop reading and go blow my nose 3 or 4 times. I couldn't see because tears were falling into my glasses and I had to wipe them up. I'm talking my dog is looking at me with concern in his eyes because I'm, sobbing. And, as much as I talk about how much the Tawny Man trilogy emotionally moved me, Assassin's Fate is the only book that's made me ugly cry. So, this is the level of good we're talking about, right? It's just that I'm not an old man looking back on his life and all the things that I've accomplished and all the people that I've affected. And so because of that, this just doesn't quite hit me as much as the man in his early 30s reckoning with the nostalgia and change and generational cycles that Fitz is reckoning with in the Tawny Man trilogy. And that's basically where I fall in this, right? Because each of the 3 trilogies I think are pretty consistent in quality and are all amazing. But the reason the Tawny Man hit me is that it hits me at the time in Fitz's life that is the same time as mine, right? And that's why Fitz and the Fool and Farseer are lower than Tawny Man for me. All right, I think I've made that point enough. Let's get into these books. Let's talk about Fool's Assassin. Is it my favorite of the 3? I think it might be. 1, it's shorter than the others. Let's see. It is, about 700 pages. 2, it's because just like Golden Fool and the first half of Fool's Errand, this book is a slice of life book. Nothing happens in this book. Well, okay, sorry. A lot of people say nothing happens in this book, but that's because people don't understand how great character development and social and power dynamics changing are, because that's all what's going on here in Fool's Assassin. Because if you're into a slice of life book, stuff is happening, but it's stuff that's really important to a character, and it's really small moments that are important to that character, not big plot, huge world-shattering moments. So when I say nothing happens, I mean nothing big, crazy, world-shattering happens in this book until the last 100 pages. But this book is world-shattering and awesome because of the slice-of-life character study that happens with Fitz in this book. At this point, I've locked into Robin Hobb's style, and I know exactly what I think she does best, and I know what emotionally impacts me, and that I really do think Robin Hobb loves her slice of life. She's so good at writing the slice of life stuff, you guys. And Fool's Assassin is the best example of this, right? The entire book takes place in one manor, Withy Woods, and it is so compelling and so engrossing. I could not put it down. Oh, that's the back of the book. I could not put it down. And I haven't even talked about the big giant risk that Robin Hobb takes in this book because, hey, look at this. About right here in this part of the book right here, a new first-person POV. That's right. Fitz has a flipping daughter, and she becomes a first-person POV in this new trilogy. What? This is the freaking end of the series, and you're introducing a new POV? But it works. Why? Because Robin Hobb is freaking good at writing characters, man, and B is such a good character. We've talked about how one of the best things that Robin Hobb does is character dynamics and relationships, right? Nowhere is that better exemplified than getting to finally see how somebody else views Fitz, like by actually reading it, right? Because you can kind of tell how other people feel about Fitz from the way Fitz talks about them, even though he doesn't see it. But then you read B's point of view, and you finally understand that the way Fitz views himself is so different from the way other people view him, and that is so emotionally impactful in this book. B and her relationship with Fitz is so compelling, heartbreaking, all of the things. I could talk about all the fun character moments. I could talk about all the crazy things, but I don't want this video to be an hour long. So let's go and move on from Fool's Assassin. Fool's Assassin might be my favorite. It's because it's the most slice of life that Robin Hobb gets in this trilogy, and you know that I love that crap because I love the first half of Fool's Errand and Golden Fool. So yes, please inject this book into my veins. All right, Fool's Quest. Look, it's just as good as the other stuff. There is a slice of life stretch in here, but it's added with extra tension because we know that B's been kidnapped and Fitz has to go save her at some point, but he doesn't know yet. And you know what? Let's get into, if I'm going to talk about Fool's Quest, right? Because I know a lot of people want me to talk about Assassin's Fate, but let's talk about in Fool's Quest the thing that I noticed that Robin Hobb did with each of these three trilogies. Because what's really interesting, and maybe you could say that this is a complaint of mine, but I don't know if it's a complaint, right? Because while I was reading Fitz and the Fool, I was continually, I don't know if I want to say disappointed, but I was definitely surprised at the amount of characters that I loved, that I wanted to see more of in this trilogy, and that I didn't get. So like here I'm thinking of Dutiful, right? Like Dutiful, one of my favorite characters in the Tawny Man trilogy, barely in this trilogy at all. Let's talk about Ketrican, because Ketrican is my favorite character of the entire Realm of the Elderlings, and I don't know why. She just, like, ever since the Farseer trilogy ended, she does not get as much page time as she freaking deserves, because she's so good. But, all that being said, there's a lot more Ketrican in Fool's Quest than there is in Fool's Assassin, and then there is in the Tawny Man trilogy. And guys, Ketrican is so good. See, I'm getting teary-eyed because I don't know if I mentioned this in my reviews, all right? Because, look, I don't get into shipping or any of that stuff, but ever since I read the Farseer trilogy, I have wanted Fitz and Ketrican to get together for the entire series, and this trilogy was the last chance for them to do that. And guys, okay, guys, the stuff between Fitz and Ketrican in this book, it's just so sad. I have gotten the vibe since Farseer trilogy that Fitz is an idiot for many reasons, but Fitz is also an idiot because he's oblivious, because I don't think he understands that Ketrican, like, is actually kind of in love with Fitz, right? Like, I think if Fitz, like, asked her, like, hey, do you want to be in a relationship, but like the Robin Hobb version of that, I think she'd be totally, like, she'd be down, right? Yes, she loves Verity, and she continues to love Verity, but I think she has so much love for Fitz. And of course that makes sense, right? Because Fitz was the only person who was there for her during the Royal Assassin days, right? Like, not even in the sense that Verity was. I mean, Fitz had to help get Verity and Ketrican actually together. He was the only one that was, like, there for her, right? And there's that moment in Assassin's Quest where Ketrican is telling Fitz that, hey man, like, you're actually not ugly, you're actually pretty handsome, and, like, if I wasn't with Verity, like, you're absolutely someone I could see myself going for. Like, she said it in a better way than that, but you get what I'm saying. So ever since then, I'm like, bro, like, Fitz and Ketrican are in game. They have to get together. And they don't. And it's not for lack of trying on Ketrican's part, my guys. She is there for him in some pivotal moments in this book. Like, when he thinks that B has died. That show the love that Ketrican has for Fitz. And he doesn't see it. He doesn't see it. Guys, even in Assassin's Fate, Ketrican is telling him that she loves him and is, like, giving him a kiss, and Fitz still thinks it's just because she loves Night Eyes more than him. Guys, like Fitz, what are we doing here, my guy? Like, Ketrikin has been there the whole time, and you picked Molly? What on earth? Okay, sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. Ketrikin is just my favorite character of the whole series, and I have wanted her and Fitz to be together this whole time. And she has such great moments in Fool's Quest where she's there for him that like just make me emotional to think about it. We're not even talking about the ending with Assassin's Fate yet. I'll get to that. Don't worry. There's a scene in this book. It's the final scene between Fitch and Shade. You could kind of tell it was the final scene between the two. And guys, I'm telling you, this is the first time that I started crying in the series. It's the scene where Shade says, "The greatest mistake chivalry ever made was you." And it's like the final moment, like one of the final moments of Shade's lucidity where they talk to each other. And I'm telling you guys, like, this is the moment where I started realizing this is the end. Like, the story is ending. These relationships are ending. And then Shade dies in Assassin's Fate. Yeah, I mean, Shade is such a complicated character, right? And the relationship between Fitz and Shade is so... I mean, there's so much we could talk about that, right? But that final moment between the two is just so moving. I started this section talking about like all these old characters that I wanted to see have more page time, right? And then I started getting on a tangent about Ketrikin. But what I really wanted to talk about is that something I noticed that Hobb does with each of these trilogies is she introduces an entirely new cast of characters each time. And each time I think, oh, but the old characters. And then I always end up loving the new characters just as much. As much as I wanted more Dutiful and more Ketrikin, we got Perseverance and Lant and Spark. And these characters were, to me, and B, of course, these characters were, to me, just as awesome and compelling as the other characters in the rest of the series. And so by the end of the series, like, I'm not upset that we didn't get more page time with Dutiful, right? Because as much as I love that character, we have a whole trilogy about Dutiful. And so I love that Hobb takes the time, even in the final series, to be like, hey, I'm not just going to rest on my laurels, and I'm not just going to like keep feeding you old characters. She's like, I'm going to keep giving you new characters and new relationships to develop, and it's going to be, right, it's going to be awesome. And it is. Especially Perseverance. Like, Perseverance to me was my personal favorite coming out of this trilogy. I felt like it was very clear the love that he had for B that was so endearing, and that made me love him so much, right? And so, you know, right, and he was introduced in Fool's Assassin, right? And so, yeah, all that to say is, like, Hobb's character writing is so good that it makes me not upset when new characters come in and they take away page time from old characters, right? And really, it just makes me look back and makes me appreciate the time that I had with those characters more than anything, you know? I just realized that I have been going through these two books, and I haven't even talked about The Fool. So yeah, sorry guys, this one's a real rambler. I have not organized my thoughts at all, unlike the Talking Man videos. The ending of Fool's Assassin, where Fitz ends up stabbing the Fool, guys, like, locked in. You don't even know how locked in I was at that point. And this gets to something that I really love about The Fitz and the Fool, and that is the contextualization of so much of the Fool in the Farseer trilogy. Because even though I liked the Fool in the Farseer trilogy, he was a big question mark for me, and I didn't quite get his deal. I also didn't quite get his deal in the Live Ship Traders either, right? Like, what's going on with him, you know, him who's also Amber, all that good stuff, right? You know, there's like that whole plot line with like the Catalyst and the White Prophets and all that stuff. And I really love that this trilogy took the time to be like, we're going to make the whole White Prophet world-building stuff. That's going to be the core conflict of this series. It was a question mark. You never thought we were going to answer it, and yet we did. And the picture we get of the Fool in this trilogy really cements the Fool as one of my favorite characters in the whole series. I mean, obviously he was already great, but his character is so much more tragic than you realized when you read that first trilogy. Because in the first trilogy, he's just kind of such a whimsical character. But in this one, he's probably struggled as much as Fitz has, not just in the stuff that he's gone through in his upbringing, but then also his torture, but before the start of this trilogy, but and how all of that has resulted in like one of the one good relationships he has with Fitz that he has to ruin because he's so locked in on this White Prophet deal, and he's so like bought in on his convictions and his beliefs and what that does to their relationship and the conflict it brings. It's just so heartbreaking and sad to read. So the Fool in this trilogy is one of the best. I mean, it's one of the best characters in the trilogy, one of the best characters in the series, obviously. And I think this trilogy goes so far in developing more of the Fool and his backstory. And the stuff we get with Claris and the White Prophets, oh my gosh, dude, that's such good stuff, man. Like, I think the Servants are probably the best villains out of the whole series. I don't know, Kenneth and Kyle are pretty despicable, pretty good villains. But I don't know, just the whole deal about like them twisting their role of using the fortunes to make the world a better place, to make their world a better place, I think it's just such a compelling conflict. And I just thought that was such a great angle to take for this series. And you know what? Let's talk about that stuff, right? Because people talk about how Fitz is stupid, and Fitz is stupid, and Fitz is no more stupid. You don't see Fitz's stupidity more than you see in this trilogy, because it's so obvious that B is a white prophet. Maybe I don't get how Fitz doesn't see it. Like, I get that it's, he didn't understand that B is kind of also the fool's kid. That's fine. I mean, that's a pretty far out there thing to connect. But how can you not connect that B is at least a white prophet? Like, the signs were there so quickly and so immediately, and he spent so much time with the fool and knows more about the fool and how the fool works than literally anybody else. How did Fitz not make that connection? Whatever. Oh, gosh. See, like, I want to go through, maybe I should have made videos on each of these books as I read them, because now I'm thinking, like, I want to move on to Assassin's Fate, but now I'm thinking about all these individual moments that I want to talk about in each of these books, and I just don't have the time, because I don't want this video to be like an hour long, but I feel like I'm not giving it the time that it deserves, right? But rest assured, we're moving on to Assassin's Fate, but there's so much more we could talk about in Fool's Quest and Fool's Assassin that I wish we could talk about. Again, I feel like I haven't even talked about as much as I want to talk about yet. But let's get to the end, right? Let's just go ahead and do it, okay? Let's talk about Assassin's Fate. So look, I'm going to be honest with you guys here. Assassin's Fate is not my favorite of the entire series. A lot of people have this listed as the best book in the entire series, and I'm not gonna go that far. The ending, perfect. 10 out of 10. Like, the last, I think, 400 pages of this, like, is definitely contender for the best 400 pages of the entire series. But it's not a 400-page book, right? It's like a 900-page book. So there's 500 pages before that. And I don't know why. Well, I was about to say I don't know why I'm surprised. But the thing is, like, I'm not surprised. I knew, based on the way Fool's Quest ended going into Assassin's Fate, that a lot of this was going to be the journey to Claris, right? Look, guys, I'm a Elderlings veteran at this point, okay? I have read Assassin's Quest. I have read Mad Ship and Ship of Destiny. I have read Fool's Fate. All right. I have read Dragon Keeper and Dragon Haven. I know that Hobb likes her detailed journeys. Okay, I get that. But I gotta be honest, you guys. I don't know. Personally, for me, I don't know if, like, I would have chosen to spend as much page time as we did on detailing the journey. Now, I get what people are going to say. It's about the journey. It's not about the destination, man. But one, I'm going to call a little bit of bull on that, because this is the destination, right? Like, this is the final book of the series, and I want to sit in that ending, but I can't, because I have to get there first, right? Which is fine too, because, like, it's not like this stuff is bad, right? Like, the first 500 pages in this book are not bad, but by no means are they bad. There's great stuff, like the stuff between B and Dwalia and Vendeliar. It's good. It's good stuff, man. The exploration with Fitz and the Fool in the first half is great. They have this conflict that's really heartbreaking to read. The development of the newfound family between Fitz, Fool, Spark, Purr, and Lant. Great stuff. Love that stuff. To bring in all the other series and bring in, Paragon and that crew and Tarman and the Rainwild's crew and bring all those stories together, right? I get why we do that. And finally, like, wrapping up that story and, like, letting the ships, like, free the shackles of the live ships and becoming dragons again. Like, I understand we had all that stuff. Good stuff. Okay. But, like, I don't know what it is. I wish we could just cut a little bit of it. Not all of it. Just a little bit of it. And just 100 pages. Just like 100 pages. Like, this book is 900 pages long. In fact, you know what? Here, I'll compromise. We don't have to trim 100 pages of this book. Take 100 pages of this first journey out, just here and there, just moments here and there, and put it in the back half of the book so that we can explore the resolution of all the characters and the stories and the following action for longer. And that gets to, like, my other critique, right? The ending is perfect. And we're going to talk about it. Don't worry. But guys, we're in the last 150, 200 pages of this book. Why are we still focused on the details of every step of the way from Fitz getting from Claris to the quarry? Guys, there's probably like 40 or 50 pages of Fitz journeying to the quarry. There's probably another 40 or 50 pages from B's point of view journeying from Claris to Buckkeep. And like, look, call me crazy, okay? But like, I just don't think we needed that much detail of that part of the journey. Sure, I get it. I get it for this part right here, right? But like, come on, guys. We're at the ending here. And so much of this final 200 pages is just journeying back to Buckkeep. And I know that's a little bit reductive, right? Because there's a lot of resolution stuff here, right? You need to see the ending of Brashen and Althea, and you need to see the ending of Kennett's son and Boyo and Wintro, right? Like, you need to see them going back to Bingtown and like realizing that all the other live ships are becoming dragons, right? You need to see that happen, right? So that's obviously why it's here. But did we really need to see 2 whole chapters of Fitz like journeying to this random town near Claris and going to touch the stone and killing some people by the stone? Did we really need a bunch of that? Now there's like stuff here like when B gets to Buckkeep, to me that's when like the important stuff is happening, right? Like that's the falling action stuff. Like she's like kind of ending her journey, she's coming into her own. She's developing her own relationships with Nettle and Riddle and the Fool and Kettrick and all that good stuff. Like, that's great falling action resolution stuff, right? It's just like, I just don't know. Like, for me personally, it's just not what I wanted to spend as much time on, right? I wanted to spend more time with these characters, resolving their relationships and with like true falling action. And we still just spend a lot of time journeying. So much time journeying in this book, you guys. And like, I love that we got so much stuff in Claris in this book, but it just took a little too long to get there for me. I just got to be honest. And I loved the final stuff with everybody at Buckkeep, but it just took a little bit too long to get back there, right? And as much as I love seeing the continuation and resolution of the live ship story, it's kind of unfair to end them to end those stories in this book, right? Because I'm so attached to those characters as they are in live ship, and I have to get their resolution to their story but filtered through somebody else's limited point of view in this book. I don't know. I don't think you need to write a whole live ship sequel to end their stories, but it is weird that like you have to get the ending of so many of the live ship characters implied from B or Fitz's point of view. Those are like, I'm not going to say my critiques. I'm not even really going to say my complaints. I don't know. I guess my differences of opinion, my preferences, right? Because I'm not Robin Hobb. She gets to choose what she gets to focus on. And it's not like any of that stuff that's in there is bad, right? Like, it's good. It's Robin Hobb stuff, so it's good. There's good character work. There's good stuff in there. There's great prose. There's great writing. There's great moments. I just wanted more of, like, falling action resolution stuff, personally. That being said, when we finally get to the resolution, the real climax of this book, when we finally get to the ending, right, which is Fitz making his skill wolf in the quarry. I mean, it's just, it's perfect. I don't know how I didn't, I don't know how I didn't realize, how I didn't call it this was how the story was going to end back in Assassin's Quest, but once I realized that this is where we were going to end the story, it hit me, not just that it was ending, and I was finally processing that it was ending, but that the ending was going to be perfect and good because it just felt so right and so emotional. And finally, we spend a lot of page time here, right? We spend a lot of page time with Fitz carving his skill wolf and resolving his relationships with everybody. And that's not to say that it's happy, because it's not necessarily happy. It's kind of, I don't even know if I would call it bittersweet, because there's a lot of bitterness to it, but it's also just feels like the proper ending. I don't know how else to explain it. And I want to go back to Kettrick for a second, because there's a lot in this final stretch where Fitz is resolving all the relationships that he's made over the past 60 years of his life and the past 17 books. And he has moments with each of these characters as he's putting memories into this wolf. And each of those characters like also gets to put something into the wolf. So the skill wolf at the end is not just an amalgamation of Fitz, Night Eyes, and the Fool, but everybody in Fitz's life, right? And that's beautiful. But there's this moment specifically that really got me, and I've already ranted about how much I love Kettrick, how she's my favorite character, how much I think she and Fitz have gotten together. And there's this really heartbreaking moment because I feel like there's a lot of regret in this last 100 pages, because there's a lot of, as you read it, there's a lot of what could have beens here, right? Like a lot of I think Fitz and the reader looking back on his life and, seeing things that they're proud of, seeing things that they did well, but also things that regrets, things they could have done better that they won't ever get to now, right? Like choices they made. One of them being ignoring Kettricken. There's this moment where Kettricken speaks to Fitz for the first time in this scene, and he says, "Oh, Kettricken, I didn't see you there." And Kettricken says, "I know, you never did." You can't do that to me, man. You can't do that to me. I spent 17 books waiting for these two to get together, and that's their ending? Like, it's good. It's perfect. Like, it is the right ending, obviously, because that is what happened. Fitz ignored her. Fitz did not see Kettricken there. And Kettricken loves him anyway, and is there for him anyway. I'm just glad that I'm only getting slightly emotional right now, and that I'm not ugly crying like I did when I read it, because you guys don't understand, right? And it's such a full bow moment, right? To go back and see that Fitz is, ending his story the way Verity did, and that he is carving his dragon like they always dream since the end of Assassin's Quest. And he's doing so with everybody. All of his loved ones by his side. And I wish I could talk about it and say more eloquent things, right? Like, I felt like my reviews of Tawny Man were pretty eloquent and impactful, if I do say so myself. And I think, like, in that sense, these books will hit me more, in like 40 years' time, when I'm nearing the end of my life, the twilight of my life, right? And I look back on everything. But I'm not there yet. But this is the ending of Fitz's life, and it's a life I've lived with him, since he was 6 years old. And it was perfect. It was just the right ending. Of course, that's how it was always going to end. And there's so much nuance I'm not even touching here, right? Like the nuance between Fitz and Bee at the end of their life, Bee and Fool, Fool merging with Fitz and the Fool and Night Eyes becoming one being together forever. Like, I just wish I could talk about all this stuff, but it's just too much. It's too much, and this video is already almost 30 minutes long, so, like, I just can't. I can't talk about it. But I will say this, that the actual ending, right, the final line of the book, is perfect. It's so good. It's so good. I'm just going to read it here. "Stay close beside me," Purr warned me, and urged his horse to a faster walk. He looked all about us as we moved through the dappling shade of the forest. When we were closer to Kettricken, he said worriedly, "There's something stalking us, off to the side of the road, moving through the forest." Kettricken smiled. Fitz and Fool and Night Eyes as the wolf will always be there to follow Bee and protect her through her life. Guys, there's so much that I wish I could cover about this trilogy. I probably should have done individual reviews of each book, but unfortunately I read all of these over the past 2 months, and so I don't have perfect memory of them. But I will say, as a final trilogy, as an ending of this series, I mean, yeah, it's just as good as the others, right? And obviously it emotionally impacted me like no else. Not just this ending, but so many moments in this trilogy and so many moments through the whole series. And I'm just so grateful for this series. And if it isn't already clear, this is my favorite series that I've read. The Expanse held that spot for the longest time, but officially after the ending of Assassin's Fate, this is it, man. Realm of the Odalings is the best series, especially the best fantasy series that I've ever read. I mean, nothing even comes close. All I want to do after finishing this is go back and reread the series from Assassin's Apprentice again, and I don't want to say goodbye. I don't want to say goodbye to Fitz. I don't want to say goodbye to any of these characters, and yet as is the case with Fitz, as is the case with life, life comes to an end. Fitz's life came to an end, and his story came to an end, and I'm grateful for it, and I love it, and it's time to let go. And maybe even though I don't want to, right, like all good stories have an ending, right? And this is why, like, my complaints aren't really that big a deal, right? Because this is the thing about books that, and really all stories that I don't really get, but like for me, a good ending really makes up for everything, right? And as much as like I maybe might have chosen to allocate page time differently in the first half of this book, it doesn't matter, because like the ending is perfect. And how many series can you say truly have a perfect ending? I mean, you could probably count them on one hand, right? And this luckily is one of them. So thank you Mrs. Hobb for writing Realm of the Elderlings. I will be rereading this series for years to come. It is my favorite series of all time, and I love it so much, so dearly. Words cannot express really how deeply moved I am. Really, I'd like to apologize to you guys because I wish I could have given this the deep dive treatment like I gave the Tawny Man trilogy, and I kind of didn't, so sorry about that. I hated to give you just one video where I kind of generally cover stuff. There's so much I could talk about. I don't know. Maybe I could figure out how to do live streams and like really deep dive them. I don't know. We'll see. But guys, Realm of the Elderlings is over. I don't know what to do, right? I actually don't know what I'm going to read next. So, and I don't know what I'm going to read that's going to be even close to as good as this. And that's just going to be my burden to bear for the rest of my life. So that's fun, right? Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this totally rambly video and for watching, maybe my other Elderlings videos. I don't know what's going to be next, but I'll be there to tell you guys about it. But until then, until next time, see ya.